a dramatic change in the last few months. As far as how the press is handling it, even with Congress, as you said, they had that briefing on Wednesday, and a number of members of Congress are coming out, and they're saying it's really serious, and they won't say exactly what they were briefed on, but you can tell by the tone of what they're saying that they're taking it pretty seriously, and it's almost like it's a threat or something.
It's like I understand why people would reserve judgment, because it's kind of like Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football. We know how the rug has been pulled out from under the public, and the UFO public in particular, so many times in the past. What are your expectations for this UAP task force report, that whenever we get the public is to see it?
Well, when we talked the other day, I said that I think it's probably like a two-pronged situation. You've got the government that's under a congressional mandate to basically declassify a lot of the UFO files that the government and the Pentagon is holding on to, and I think they're probably going to do that. So that explains why we're seeing these videos that are taken from cockpit cameras of F-18s chasing the Tic Tacs and that kind of thing. And there's a lot more of those videos that are starting to come out even this week. But it's part of what I was trying to convey in my book is if you go back to the Truman and the Eisenhower days, basically what they were doing is the first thing they did is they tried to get their hands around it and keep it totally secret so they could develop the technology. And then they took a lot of the things that were recovered from crash wreckage and farmed them out to these multinational corporations and asked them to do the research on it. And a lot of them, they gave them they let them have the patent rights on a lot of the technology they developed, and they've obviously made a lot of money over the last 20, 30 years with the technology they've developed. But with the corporations, they operate different than the government in the sense that when these companies develop this research and develop this technology, they're operating behind the scenes from the perspective of being a proprietary organization, and their research is private. So they're under really no obligation to hand it over to the public. And as you know, the private corporations aren't subject to freedom of information requests and that kind of thing. So I think we're going to see on one side, the government's going to come out and say, here's the videotapes of the UFOs. And then when it comes down to, well, what'd you do with the wreckage? Well, we gave it to, XYZ, defense contractor, and I'm not sure they even know where it is now. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I suspect that if or when that ever comes out, if the hangar doors are thrown open and people, scientists or whomever, investigators get to go look at this stuff, that's a long way down the road. Just to have a report where they don't belittle it, where they, instead, as we've been told by the New York Times, that they are going to basically cross one suspect off the list, and that is that it's not ours, basically not ours as far as they know. Now, maybe there's more investigation to do there, but I think that is a pretty profound thing, that, hey, basically, we don't know what these things are. That's progress.
Well, I agree, and I think that, when we talked before, that once you open that can of worms up and you come out and say, yeah, these things are real, here's pictures of them, you're not putting the lid back on that can anymore. So, a lot of the advantage they've had over the years is basically just deny the existence and say it's not real, or trying some way to cover it up. But once you come out and start showing pictures of UFOs and legitimate documented pictures like taken by Navy fighter jets and stuff like that, you can't take it back. And I think once you open that can of worms, the public's going to be all over it. And a lot of people that might have been skeptical before are going to start being pretty demanding as far as wanting more information.
I look at your qualifications. I talked about the timing is great because so many people are asking, how can they get involved? What can they do? If they want to investigate cases to help the larger cause, how do they do it? So your book comes out, UFO Investigation, the Methodology for a New Age. The timing is really good. But in looking at your qualifications, it almost looks like it was planned for you to be a premier UFO investigator. You're a private eye. You're a pilot. You have an aviation experience. You work with these federal security agencies. Each step of those is almost puts you further up on the rung of UFO investigators, and you've proven that over the years. It's amazing. You didn't do it on purpose, or did you?
Well, I don't know if it's synchronistic, but there's always been something there in my life where that I used to say that for some reason I kept doing this, and I'm not even sure myself why, but I've just had a fascination with it since since I was in flight school. And the more I did this kind of thing, the more involved I got with people that had experienced different types of phenomena. The more you develop that information, and you start to understand what's really going on. And it takes a while to get your head wrapped around some of it, because some of it is what they call high strangeness.
Boy, don't I know. So I was not aware until I read the newest book, that you had some personal experiences here. One of them was in flight school. Tell us that story.
Okay. Basically, I graduated from Embry-Riddle, and I've got a degree in aeronautics from there. And at the same time, while I was finishing up my degree, I was going to flight school. So I had got my commercial pilot's license, my instrument license, and I was working on my flight instructor rating. In any event, one night, I took off from Daytona, and it was dark. It was probably 11 o'clock at night, something like that. And I'm flying up the east coast of Florida, heading north towards Jacksonville. And I'm out, maybe 2,500, 3,000 feet above the water, and about a mile out over the ocean. So it's really it's a beautiful ride up there at night with all the cities and the lights reflecting off the ocean and everything. It's just a really gorgeous trip to take. So I'm flying up the coast, and essentially what you do when you're flying is those little airplanes back in that day, you had navigation radios, but you also had a couple of communication radios. There's two radios. So one radio is typically tuned to the last place you were, the last control or tower that you were at. And the other radio is tuned to where the next one where you're going, if that makes sense. So you're flying up the coast, you've got two radios going, you're listening to what we call radio traffic, which is the pilots talking to each other. So I'm flying along. And, out of the darkness, all of a sudden I hear this Eastern airline captain calling to the air traffic controller. And he's basically saying to them that we've got traffic in our flight path. And what he means by that is he means there's something else out there in the air in the direction that they're going. And so he said, we've got traffic in our flight path. The controller comes back and it says negative radar contact Eastern. And so a minute or so passes, and the pilot comes back again, and he says, we have a visual on traffic in our flight path. And you could tell that, I'm starting to pay attention. It's like, whoa, what's going on here, And I can't see it, but I can hear him talking. Well, as another minute or so passes, the controller comes back and goes on negative radar contact. Well, I think that made the pilots mad, because the next time the guy was angry, he said, look, we've got traffic in our flight path. It's huge, unconventional, rotating slowly over the ocean with multicolored lights on it. And then you heard the voice of another pilot who was in a different airplane. He was in a business jet, and he basically called and said, we have a visual on the same object as Eastern. And then the traffic controllers were like, negative radar contact. And then everything went quiet. Because pilots don't like to talk about that stuff, particularly on the airplanes, especially back then, because it wouldn't do their career any good to report a UFO. Although it happened all the time, I'm quite sure, but they were very reluctant to talk about it. So in any event, I'm flying on up the coast, and I get up to Jacksonville. That was the Naval Air Station at the time. So it was a military and civilian airport back then. And I called the tower because I was going to land, and then I was going to go back to Daytona. And they wouldn't let me land. They asked me to basically fly in a circle and maintain holding for departing military traffic. And now I'm thinking, oh, wow, now it's fine. So I look down, and I see these two fighter jets come screaming off the runway. And they went, as soon as they went up out over the ocean, you could see them. They were lit up in full afterburners, and you could hear them. They boomed they went right through the sound barrier, and they went screaming out over the ocean, right to where the Eastern jet said that thing was. So And then, of course, when they were gone, they let me land, and at that point, I basically went back to Daytona Beach that night without any further incident. But the things that I learned, in my book, I said the three things I learned is, one, there was for sure an unidentified object in the flight path of the commercial airliners, that they reported it, that the two pilots from different perspective angles and two jets saw it and reported it. Air traffic controllers denied that it existed, but then when I got up there to Jacksonville, they dispatched fighter jets to go intercept it, which confirmed for me that they knew it was out there. They just didn't want to admit it on the radio. So that's kind of how my UFO exploration started. It was back in the late 70s.
Much later, we'll fill in the gap, but much later in your life, after you've been an active UFO investigator for a while, you had other experiences that suggested that you were under some kind of surveillance. I don't know if it's appropriate to get into that now, but I'd like to at least touch on those experiences with the helicopters.
Yeah, I was, there was, I included that in my book because it's just really interesting, but essentially, I was living in Virginia in a gated community that's outside of, it's near Monticello. And my wife and I were at an event at the bank, and we're coming back home at 10:30 at night. And there's an area that it's on Route 600 where you drive along, and there are horse farms and the white fences and all that. And as we're driving along this road, I look up and I see this, I thought it was a big helicopter, but it didn't have any lights on it. And it came up over the road and went right over us. And then right behind it, there was two smaller helicopters that had normal navigation lights and everything, and they were following it real close. I mean, this thing came over the car, so, I mean, they were down like maybe 30, 50 feet altitude. And when they came over the car, I had a convertible at the time. The top was up and secured, but I thought it was going to rip the top of the car off because of the rotor wash. That's how close it was. And I actually swerved and pulled off the road. But so anyway, we went on home, which was about maybe 5-8 miles away, and we pulled into the driveway, opened the garage door, pulled the car in the garage, and we were both kind of standing there in the doorway in the driveway where the garage is, and the helicopters went right over the house, like maybe 50, 100 feet of altitude, AGL, and then they went around the lake, and it surprised me that they were so low in that residential area like that. But the weird thing that happened after that is, like, when the helicopters went away, you'd hear them, and the big one in the front was, one of those ones where you can feel the ground shake when it goes over, it looked like a big heavy military helicopter. So anyway, my wife went on up into the house upstairs, and I was still standing in the garage, and all of a sudden there was this really bright flash of light that happened. And it was like a lightning strike, or, I thought when it happened, I looked around the garage, I thought maybe a light bulb blew up or something, because not only could you see this really bright flash, but you could feel it, and like a static snap. And I was just like surprised. And then I hear my wife screaming, and she's upstairs in the second floor of the house, and she saw it flash too, which we thought was kind of interesting. But, other than that, I've never explained it, but it's just, that's the kind of phenomena that happens with some of these events.
You learned a lot about how law enforcement operates, what kind of surveillance operations are conducted by federal agencies, local agencies. You had another experience, I think, in the same general time frame at that home, where it looked like you were under surveillance, and possibly because of some really sensitive cases that you were investigating. Yeah.
See, in the book, I talked about how back in the early days when we started doing this stuff was, now we have all these wonderful computer systems where people go in and report cases, investigators put their data and all that. Back then, when we started out, the UFO reports were done on paper, typed up, and sent in manila envelopes, and they sent them they sent them to you through the U.S. mail, and then you investigated them and filled them in and sent them back, that kind of thing. That's how it was then. We were always a little paranoid, in the book I said I was worrying about, men in black and government boogeymen sneaking around and watching what you're doing. We worked on a case that was up at a place called Vent Hill Farms, and they had just been in the process of shutting it down. But what we now know, it was an NSA base up there, and there's still a lot of government stuff going on there. But there was a report, a UFO report, that took place on there was an individual that was parked around the fence to where the base is, on the outside of the fence, and had an abduction experience there. And it was actually in the paper and everything, and we got a hold of the sheriff's office up there, and we went up and investigated it. And I'm not going to get into all the details of the case, but essentially we went up and investigated the case. We took a team up there, and we were doing, radiation surveys, and used magnetometers, and checked the area out, did all that. But when we were up there, well, I went up with another investigator, and he was actually he was in law enforcement at the time. The two of us rode up there together. Well, when we came back from the case, my wife had said that we had this big dog, husky, like a 95-pound Malamute husky.
I tell you what, Richard, I'm going to have to interrupt your story. We'll pick it up on the other side, and then we're going to get into the how-to of UFO investigations, your recommendations for how regular folks can help. UFO Investigation, the Methodology for a New Age is the title of Richard Lang's new book. We'll be back after Ace of Base takes us into the break.
From the Kfi 24-hour newsroom. Orange County authorities are asking the public for information about possible additional incidents involving the two suspects charged in the road rage shooting on the 55. Marcus Ariz is accused of firing the shot that killed 6-year-old Aiden Leos, and Winnie Lee is accused of driving their car. Police have arrested a man accused of starting a brush fire near Ojai late Friday afternoon. The fire broke out in the Miners Oaks area and ended up scorching about 5 acres of land, but no structures were damaged. The Clippers dropped Game 1 of the NBA Western Conference Final Playoff Series against the Suns. Final score, 120-114. Game 2 is tomorrow night in Phoenix. Southland weather from KFI. Some fog in the morning, sunshine in the afternoon. Highs from the low 90s in the valleys and the Inland Empire. Right about 80 degrees for the LA and OC metros. Beaches into the upper 60s. Right now it is 63 in La Mirada, Laguna Hills 60, Brentwood 63, and in Canyon Country 60 degrees. We lead local from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. I'm Phil Hewlett.
Making your way through Monterey Park, northbound 710 before Valley Boulevard. 2-car crash in the left lane, a little heavy here as you come away from the 10. If your travels take you out of Hollywood and into the Cahuenga Pass, cars are down northbound 101 from Highland up to the 170. 3 left lanes out of commission. That could go as late as 6 a.m. And in Colton, southbound 215 of Washington, 2-car crash. Carpool lane is blocked. CHP's on the scene. They're waiting on the tow truck to arrive. KFI in the sky helps get you there faster. I'm Ryan Duggan.
Where do SoCal drivers go for a super selection of new Hondas and a super experience? The Norm Reeves Honda Superstore. Start with super value when you sell us your vehicle. Then choose from one of the largest Honda inventories in Southern California. Every new Honda is backed by our exclusive price protection guarantee, which states if you can find the same new Honda for less within 5 days, Norm Reeves will pay you the difference or buy your vehicle back. Plus, our friendly team makes car buying effortless and enjoyable. Hurry in for super selection and a super experience during the Norm Reeves 4th of July event. Visit our super award-winning Norm Reeves Honda Superstore locations in Huntington Beach, West Covina, the Irvine Auto Center, and the #1 Honda store in the world in the Cerritos Auto Square. Plus, we're now open in Vista. Shop online at normreeves.com. As for Global Honda, new vehicle sales 2020.
Did you know that the average American has 97 points they can add to their credit score, but they have no idea how to get them? The data scientists at ScoreMaster cracked the code on how to do it. Adding 97 points to your credit score is like found money. It also means fast loan approvals, huge discounts and low interest rates on everything from buying or refinancing a home to leasing a new car to applying for a credit card. How fast is ScoreMaster? One member raised his credit score 33 points in just 5 days. Another person 43 points in just a couple weeks. And we get tremendous feedback from listeners just like you about ScoreMaster. ScoreMaster is so easy. It takes about a minute to get started. And if you're in a hurry, you get to try ScoreMaster for free. That's right. Try ScoreMaster for free and see how many plus points you can add to your credit score. Just go to scoremaster.com/Tim. That's scoremaster.com/Tim. Scoremaster.com/Tim.
KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk.
Do you think I'm going to get in trouble for what I just said?
Sure hope so.
Boss is outside the window here.
She's waiting.
Not good. If we just keep going.
She won't come in?
She's
You want
staring
that?
at the light.
Gary and Shannon. Weekdays at 10 a.m. on KFI. KFI AM 640.
Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, Moody Blues, Your Wildest Dreams. We're talking with Richard Lang, whose new book has practical advice for people who want to investigate UFO cases on their own, want to contribute to sort of a larger cause, dealing with methods and tactics and equipment, precautions, dealing with witnesses. But the book also has personal experiences and observations, including some pretty dramatic cases that Richard personally investigated as the MUFON liaison to OSAP. That is the larger mother program to what we know became ATIP. Richard was the direct link between MUFON and Bass. That's the Bigelow company that housed the program for the DIA. We're going to be getting into that real soon.
Credit Karma Money is a new checking account that lets you win daily instant Karma purchase reimbursements on items up to $5,000. And when you make a purchase between June 8th and June 30th, you'll be entered to win $1 million. Visit creditkarma.com/winmoney. Instant Karma is sponsored by Credit Karma. No purchase necessary. Exclusions and terms apply. See rules. Banking services provided by MVB Bank, Inc., member FDIC. Maximum balance and transfer limits apply.
You have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today. They're giving back by sharing great discounts on MyPillow products by going to MyPillow.com right now and clicking on the Radio Listener Special square. Save up to 66% off on products like their pillows and Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, and waffle blankets. All of MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code ICON.
Guys, waking up over and over to pee is not okay. But now, you can reduce those nighttime bathroom trips with the ingredients in Super Beta Prostate P3 Advanced. We're talking about less urges to pee at night, less bathroom trips during the day, and better bladder emptying.
That's why Super Beta Prostate is the #1 prostate supplement recommended by urologists. You can try a full 30-day bottle free. Just pay shipping and handling. No strings attached and no commitments to buy. This is a 30-day supply. Absolutely free. Call 1-800-483-6019. Super Beta Prostate is the best-selling brand in major retailers like Walmart. But for this no strings attached free bottle, you must call now. Call 1-800-483-6019. Don't miss out on this unprecedented free offer. 1-800-483-6019. 1-800-483-6019.
Richard Lang, I want to give you a chance to finish the story that we asked about on the other side before the break. It was, the 90s. There's concern about government surveillance of UFO organizations and investigators, and it looks like you were under surveillance.
Yeah, essentially, we were at Vent Hill. We were on our way back, got back, and my wife basically was a little upset because she had let the dog out in the back, our backyard, and he had like a run, like about a 50-foot cable. He was running out the yard, and the whole back of behind the house was all wood. The dog, he's up on his back legs, stretched out the end of his run, and he's barking at something in the woods. She looks, and there's a guy back in the woods with a walkie-talkie watching her. So they were watching my house. And then later on that day when we got back, after she told us that, we rode around the community a little bit, and we found there's a picture of it in my book. It was a surveillance van that somebody, and it had, government plates on it and a sticker for the Air Force Base in the window and everything. And we, there was nobody in it, but I think they might have been getting something to eat because it was parked at the local restaurant. But we thought that was kind of interesting.
So today they wouldn't have to do that. They could just tap your phones or get into your computer. You wouldn't even know it. Yeah. Yeah,
that's what I said in the book. Is that back in that day they were following people around, but once they started with the internet reporting systems, and not to mention that everybody's walking around with a smartphone, they can just monitor your web visits and monitor your phone and look at the case reports. So there's no reason to follow anybody around anymore.
Because of your investigative experience, your credentials, your background, you rise to the top in MUFON over the years, and so you get to see the cream of the crop in terms of the best cases that come in. I mean, hundreds of cases come in every month. You could eventually, you were able to pursue the ones that you found interesting, and you were part of the TV show that MUFON had for a while, right?
Yeah, initially when we started out, they call it the STAR team, but there was about a dozen people that were like really, really good investigators that at MUFON that worked on some of the real high-profile cases. There were about 10 of us. And at some point, I was appointed to be like the manager and the coordinator for it. But where we really got going was there was a couple of cases that we worked on. There was one in Fayetteville and one in Bucks County, where we'd gone out, interviewed witnesses, and videotaped, their statements and and then put a report together. And we sent the video and the reports to the producers at Discovery Channel because they were wanting to do a couple of shows on UFOs. And so they created this series called UFOs Over Earth and did several one-hour TV shows about the cases that we did. And so we got to be a lot more, that got us a lot of popularity. Those cases aired all over the world, and that really kind of kicked off the STAR team, and that, that's really how it all developed. And then when we can talk about that, but when BASS was set up, that we were just like teed up for to move right into that project.
So BASS is a subcontractor company, an affiliate with Bigelow Aerospace. The Defense Intelligence Agency establishes a secret program called OSAP. They give the contract to BASS, which is Bigelow, and then Bigelow is the conduit. I mean, he establishes a financial relationship with MUFON. MUFON has always needed funding to have boots on the ground to do real investigations. Bigelow provided it. It's something like $56,000 a month Tell me about how that was set up and how cases went from MUFON to Bass.
Okay. Essentially what happened is that Bass had made an agreement with MUFON. And the agreement was basically, they used to call it a purchase agreement, because essentially what we were doing was we were selling them information about case reports and investigation. And so when it was set up, we actually interviewed and hired. We put out we wanted to keep this part of the project separate from the general population of MUFON. So essentially what we did is we posted applications for people to apply to be investigators. And these were all paid positions. And we ended up with about 50 or 60 people that actually qualified to be investigators. And then we hired a team of people that we call them dispatchers. And these guys were paid $15 an hour. And there was always somebody on the desk that was watching all the case reports that came in through the system. So 24 hours, 7 days a week, one of our team was on there watching all the cases come in. So essentially what you've got is, you're looking at like 600-800 cases reports that come in every month just from MUFON alone. You look around the world, there's probably 3,000 or 4,000 of them. But we're getting like 800 case reports a month. And those case reports vary from, you've got an 86-year-old grandmother that saw a light in the sky, and then you've got a pilot that had a close encounter with something in his flight path. So it's a dramatic difference in the types of cases that are coming at you. So what these guys' job was, their job was essentially to go through the cases, and we had very specific criteria on how to sort them out. It's all in my book, but the details of how they sort the cases out and qualify them. And so ultimately what they would do is, we call them significant reportable events, but out of 800 cases, we get maybe 40 or 50 that were really good ones. And so they would kind of vet all that down and send those to me. And then based on, I'd look at those cases and we'd send that information of those 40 or 50, they'd go to Bass. And then I'd set up maybe 8 or 10 deployments, and I'd send investigators out to actually work on the cases and interview the witnesses and collect data and that kind of thing. So what we did was, Bass was paying us $56,000 a month. And essentially what we were doing was we were going through there and serving up to them the 40 or 50 best cases that we could find in there. And part of the criteria we used to sort that data, they helped us develop that. So behind the scenes, we're basically, I was on a conference call every Friday with the guys at Bass. And essentially what we would do is I'd send them all those reports, and then we'd spend a couple, 3 hours on a Friday afternoon talking about the cases and what happened, and they'd ask questions, and I'd get information for them, whatever they needed. And then
for a while, this worked well, right? It worked well.
Well, for a year, it was great. We were getting paid, and the investigators, the guys were getting $100 a day to go out and work on cases, all their meals and transportation, hotels, everything was paid for. And, we had the operations person that scheduled all the flights and the hotels. She was full-time employee paid. So it was really, I was full-time paid. Dispatchers were all paid. And that was 12 years ago, and they were making $15 an hour back then, so that wasn't bad money. And, it was a great deal. It really was. And I think the guys at Bass, they were, we can talk a little bit about on their side of the mirror, but essentially, once they got that information, then they had a team of people that might actually would go out and maybe investigate the cases and look into them in more details and do medical tests and scientific, testing on some of the situations that were, involved in the cases.
So eventually I heard, there's a lot of criticism. Oh my gosh, the MUFON board is saying we're in league with the evil cabal, the government. Although you didn't know who in the government was managing the program, the larger program. We can't be part of this. This is terrible. We've sold out to evil Bigelow and the government, even though MUFON was giving case information to Bass. Bass could go pick and choose which cases it investigated further, and it wouldn't share the information back with MUFON. But MUFON was still free to pursue the investigation of those cases that Bass had funded in the first place.
Exactly. And Like anything else, there's always people out there that are, raising issues. But essentially, the guys at Bass, I knew that money didn't come from Robert Bigelow, but they couldn't tell me who it did come from. They just said we can't disclose that. But I knew clearly it wasn't from Bigelow, but I didn't really care. We're getting $56,000 a month. And on my side of the mirror, I mean, I could send people anywhere I wanted at any time for as long as I wanted. They were paying for everything, and they never questioned it. They never came back and said, "Oh, well, don't look into that," or "Don't go there," or "Don't do this." They never did. It was totally. I had complete discretion over where to go, what to do, and what to look at, and what to investigate, and The only thing is that if they would go out and work on a case, our deal from the first day, it was very clearly defined that look, if we do research, it's proprietary, it's private, and we're not going to give it back. We're not going to. You can do what you want, learn what you want, and we'll pay for it. But we're not giving you our information about what we're developing and what we're trying to understand. And that was from day one. That was the way it was worked out. There was nothing mysterious about it or sneaky about it. And it really was a good deal. And then, of course, afterwards, I remember somebody on a radio show one night gets on there and she's going on about all the sinister stuff that's going on. And it just, first of all, she wasn't even involved in it. I was there every day, involved in every bit of that. And everything she said was complete crap. I don't know where I don't know, it was
just lashing out, getting attention, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You're the guy who was the direct contact to them, and no one else. You're it.
Right, exactly. And nobody, when we set it up, I was the person that ran the program, and nobody at MUFON had any contact with that but me.
So for the first time, MUFON has the resources to investigate any case that comes in, any case that they want, and they're doing it. And you must have had some really good cases, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, the thing that I'd say a couple of things. One of them is when you've got a dispatch team that's working that whole system. Prior to that, what you'd have is you've got 50 state directors, and so if a case happens in Maryland, that state director gets the case, and if a case happens in Illinois, that director gets the case. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. We had events that would occur where something would start out like this huge red orb. It's seen over in Philadelphia. And then the next thing is moving along, and as it goes across the country, they're seeing like 15 reports coming in from, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, Oklahoma, all the way out to California. So when you've got somebody watching the whole screen, watching the whole country at the same time, there was some really interesting data that developed that 15 state directors might not have gotten their heads together and said, hey, this thing came across the whole country last night. That kind of thing. So that was really a significant issue, a significant part of that program.
At some point, you who are familiar with the database, with the cases that come in, they're really good ones, things start disappearing. They're completely taken out. I imagine your initial suspicion is maybe the evil government has tapped into our computer and they're stealing our data.
Well, okay. We're running this program for like almost a year, and as you well know, the wheels came off of it, and it ended prematurely. To everybody's, everybody was pretty upset and sad about that. But one of the things that came up with me was my dispatchers were calling me up. Joe DiEduardo, he was the head of the team, and he's calling me up and going, you know what, this really great case came in last night, and this morning it's gone. This happened like 3 or 4 times, and so he starts, he starts documenting everything. So we had a case that came in. It was over a Native American reservation, and it was a really good case. I mean, it was like object on the ground, some kind of alien contact, the videotape. The reservation police were involved in, a bunch of people. He documented everything, right? Next morning, case is gone, disappears. So basically what happened in my world is there was a couple, and I got to say this, there was a couple people on the MUFON board that aren't on the board anymore, and aren't even in MUFON anymore, that were really what I'd say were the instigators that were really, challenging. But basically what happened is I confronted them about the cases, and of course, they were sitting there lying about it, and I just kept grinding them and interrogating them, and here's the information here, here's what I found here, here's what I found. And finally, yeah, okay, we did it. So they admitted that they did it. And once that kind of stuff starts happening, we weren't such good friends anymore, because they really didn't like the fact that I held them to their feet to the fire to explain what happened to those cases.
You held them to the agreement that they signed.
Yeah, exactly. And we could talk about this a little bit more, but I think that one of the things that I said in my book, and I've recently talked to some guys from MUFON, the board and so forth, and I think what was really going on, if you go back and look at the history, Project Blue Book ends in like December of 1969, and it's the same, within a couple weeks, MUFON starts. And so what I think was probably going on was they were looking at this stuff thinking, there's a better way to do this. Instead of us having these guys sneaking around all the time following these investigators, they start their own UFO organization. Next thing you know, they've got everybody essentially eating out of their hand and giving them whatever information they want. And I really believe that the database that they use was probably developed, I'm pretty sure it was developed by some compartment of IBM. And so there's some, I'm sure there's some backdoor in there where there's some group agency that can go in there and look at cases. But it's not really that all bad, because the system still works really efficiently. People file reports. These investigators go out and investigate the cases. They learn an incredible amount. They're developing data on all that. And so, if somebody's looking at some of those cases behind the scenes, I'm not sure. It's not my job to evaluate whether that's morally right or not. I don't know. But
and it occurs to me, though, that the model worked. It worked then. It could work again. So if, say, this report to Congress instigates a new program of some sort, they could, take advantage of civilian UFO organizations, magnify their eyes and ears by following the same model and getting cases to come in to investigate.
Yes, absolutely. Because what's going on is these databases are really powerful and sophisticated. And, everybody knows if you have a UFO experience, you go online and say the MUFON, you click on it, this really fabulous window opens up, report format, and it, you get all your information. It asks you all the right questions, and then, there's space there where you can upload video and pictures and documents, all that kind of thing. It's really a very, very good system. And, that data is very useful. And obviously that's what Bass was interested in, is that once you get that data, they can go and look at case reports and develop data that culminate data, that kind of thing, which is really valuable and powerful.
Richard Lang has spent 30 years investigating UFOs. He's got ideas about how you can do some of the same, the methodology for a new age UFO investigation. That's his new book, and when we come back, we're going to get into some of his suggestions on how to improve your own UFO investigations. The Grateful Dead take us into the break with Friend of the Devil.
Said I'd run, but I took my time. A friend of the devil's a friend of mine. time inside our homes this past year, the time is now to get outdoors. The all-new Avelo Airlines is inspiring travel with flights starting as low as $19. Experience incredible wine tasting to national parks to epic outdoor adventures at the West's most beautiful destinations. With $19 fares, why not be spontaneous? Visit AveloAir.com. That's AveloAir.com and book your flight today. Avelo Airlines. Surprisingly low fares, refreshingly smooth travel. AveloAir.com. Restrictions may apply. Visit AveloAir.com for details.
We got a million reasons to visit Morongo, but we've only got a minute. So here's 5. Now the top 5 reasons to visit Morongo. Number 5.
At Morongo, you just get more. More games, more dining, more fun, more memories, more good times. Just come.
Number 4.
It's officially summer, which means you officially need a cabana, a cocktail from Sunset Bar, and officially need to chill on the lazy river.
3.
You play, you earn. You can pay with points. For a room? Cool. At Cielo? Fine. Gas and gifts? Go get it.
Number 2.
Stimulate your senses at Sage Spa. Try the Hot Rock Massage.
And the number 1 reason.
We're sports fanatics. We've got big screens everywhere you eat, stay, and play. 7 days a week and 24 hours a day.
Morongo Casino Resort and Spa, conveniently located on the I-10, less than 90 minutes from wherever you are. Morongo, good time!
There are no limits to what we can do together. So let's keep rising, California.
Esquina, esquina, y ahí nos vamos. El mundo es grande, pero lo tengo en mis manos. Estoy muy duro, sí, así vamos. Y con el tiempo nos seguimos observando.
Get vaccinated and wear a mask when it can protect you and others. Your actions save lives. To learn more, visit covid19.ca.gov.
¿Y dónde está mi ante?
That doesn't sound like it's any fun. Tim Conway Jr. Show.
It sounds like it's our last word.
Weeknights at 6 on KFI. You can listen to KFI everywhere, like you haven't noticed. KFI AM 640 Los Angeles, Orange County.
And KOSG HD2.
It's 5 a.m. What is this?
It's time for Wake Up Call with Jennifer Jones-Lee.
Hello, party people. I miss you guys.
Can I be honest? I have to say, I'm not sure that I miss getting up this early. But when you have 7 people in your house, 4 adults and 3 kids, under the age of 7, for 9 days.
I miss you guys.
No, it was awesome. And huge thanks to Layla for giving me a week off. It was great.
I don't think I slept as much as I was hoping.
But the memories made were well worth the sleep deprivation. So I'll tell you more about it. It's been great fun. You can check out my Instagram this morning, JJLKFI on Instagram. If you want to see, man, I don't know. There were few stones unturned in Southern California. I feel like last week. It was game on. All right, here's what's just ahead on your wake-up call. 2 members of the LA County City Council have filed a motion to formally withdraw from the LA Homeless Services Authority. Organizers of the Tokyo Olympics say they'll allow some local fans to go to the games when they open next month. That announcement was just made this morning. At 5:05, we're going to talk with ABC's Karen Travers. There's this controversy that started last week over President Biden's stance on abortion, and it had to do with what the Catholic bishops were threatening to take a communion away from him and other officials who support abortion rights. Then you add members of